Gerald Swoyer was a hard-working man. Through his actions, he proved himself as an individual with strong talents. He worked hard throughout his military service and excelled in mechanical work. Swoyer loved his family and his time in service. Through his journey in the military, he learned about what he cared about most.
Swoyer was born in Auburn, Pennsylvania, living at the time with his two parents. Later in life, after receiving his high school diploma, he moved himself down to Pittsburgh. While there, he worked in a mill that pressed clothing designs. During this time, he realized that he wasn't happy with his job and came to the conclusion that
maybe I should find something that I enjoy doing more than pressing clothes. So that's when I talked to my parents about a trade school.
once Swoyer had begun attending a trade school specialized in auto body repair, he never really looked back. At that time, there were tons of people being drafted from his school, and
I wanted to stay in the trade school and finish what I started there. So I joined the Pennsylvania National Guard. And that allowed me to stay in school.
Swoyer enlisted with a friend in 1963, and there just so happened to be a unit situated right in Pittsburgh. Due to all the complication involved with the Cuban Missile Crisis,
We could not go to basic training as soon as we signed up. So we spent about 6 months as members of this National Guard unit before we even went away to basic training.
upon one of the first nights of his basic training was the most memorable, and on that night,
In Fort Knox, Kentucky, I remember the feeling of homesickness. And one of the other fellows there just kind of nudged me and said, "Are you feeling this too, Jerry?" And yes, I was.
The basic training he received was very straightforward.
We got used to running in boots, and we were issued our rifles. We were taught how to strip them down, take them apart, put them back together again, how to clean them. Then we were taken to the rifle range. We were shown how to shoot the rifles.
Swoyer, due to his age and physique, had no trouble with basic training.
Waiting to go to basic training, and we did physical training. So I was a little prepared for it. So it wasn't really, and I was in pretty good shape at the time. I was young, and it was pretty easy for me.
once Swoyer passed basic training and moved on to advanced training, things became a bit more interesting. His training now took place at Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland and now consisted of some classroom work, but after that was done, he and his unit moved on to practicing on live engines of all kinds. Swoyer found this quite easy because
One of the reasons why I joined this specific unit, and one of the reasons was because I had a high mechanical aptitude. It was easy for me to take apart an engine or just take a part off of an engine and replace it.
with this, Swoyer passed the test at the end of advanced training with flying colors, thus advancing to being a hands-on mechanic, which is what he did for around 6-ish years until he got promoted to a platoon leader. As a platoon leader,
So it was my job as a platoon leader, to make sure that each squad leader knew what his job was for his squad during our weekend training exercises.
Swoyer also went to advanced training and worked on engines to get his job specifics. He worked on display engines and changed parts in them. He talked about the one time during his service that stood out, which was the one time in 13 years he was sent out on active duty. During the Pittsburgh racial riots, he was called out to uphold a curfew. On the first of the 3 days he was brought out, his commander had made a mistake, and all of his men were guarding for 12 to 13 hours, leaving no more men after the guard unit was too tired. During his active duty, one unit had to fire upon a car that drove through the barricade that had formed. Even though Swoyer had no part in it, he still said he had fear that he heard 3 rounds being shot off, then no more.
And hearing 3 live rounds go off, not too far from you. And it definitely brought us to our attention.
During the summer, Swoyer went to a training camp at Fort Knox and Camp Drum in New York. When he enlisted, it was during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and he did so because of fear of being drafted. Swoyer also served during the Vietnam War, and since he was already in a Guard unit, he didn't get drafted. While he did still have fear of being called up, in the end, that never happened.
The government could have taken our whole Guard unit and put them on active duty and sent them over to Vietnam or sent them somewhere in the United States, but they didn't. And our Guard unit stayed as a National Guard unit all during the Vietnam crisis or Vietnam conflict.
Swoyer unfortunately had to end his service before he was able to get retirement. This was because it was too much for him and his wife to deal with him being in the Guard and having a family. He regretted his decision and wished he could have stayed longer for the benefits and the friends he made.
I enjoyed my stay in the Pennsylvania National Guard. It gave me some little extra spending money because those days, the 2 days a month I spent and the 2 weeks I spent on active duty, I got paid for. We collected regular military pay. And I made some very good friends in the National Guard. So anybody that thinks they would enjoy military life a couple of days a month, I recommend it. I would highly recommend it.